Okay.
Great.
Before we get going, I'll just say for everybody called in, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, please mute yourself, and unless you want to show up on because we'll start recording this, unless you want to show up on YouTube later, turn off your camera unless you're presenting. And that's all I have. So commissioners, I'll let you get going.
Great. Thanks a lot, Emmy, for pulling all this together. Okay, we'll call this public meeting to order for Thursday, August 27th, 2020. We'd like to acknowledge that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. And with that, would you please join me in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation, under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
For all.
Thank you. Under public announcements, we have Suicide Prevention Week, and I saw that Nancy DiPestino is on. I imagine she's going to speak to this.
Hi, thanks, Josh. It's Nancy Hobbins now. That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I just read it off the screen.
Totally cool. Hey, I want to thank you all for acknowledging Suicide Prevention Week, and September is Suicide Prevention Month. We have a lot of great events that we're planning for the week of September 6th through 12th, and really kicking it off with your proclamation. We're working so hard in Missoula County to strengthen the safety net for those who are in a mental health crisis, and knowing that this time is difficult and kind of ratchets up mental health issues for a lot of people. We are just taking all of that into account and working with our entire community to do what we can for people in need. So thank you for your support. Thank you for, all your support from my office and for the Project Tomorrow Montana Coalition. I just want to, just let you know how grateful we are for that.
Great, thanks. Juan, do you want to read this? Do you have the proclamation in front of you? If not, I'm happy to.
I do. I can read it.
Oh, great. Oh, please do.
So, this is whereas this proclamation recognizes suicide as a countywide problem and suicide prevention as requiring a community effort, and whereas Montana's suicide rate is the fourth highest in the nation and has ranked among the top 5 states with the highest rates of suicide for the past 4 decades. And whereas in 2016, Missoula County has suffered 129 suicides, and whereas suicide by firearm accounts for 51% of all suicides in the U.S. and 67% of all suicides in Missoula, and guns stored in the home are used for suicide 40 times more than for self-defense. And whereas it is important in this time of encouraged social isolation to consider the effects of mental health and improve our system for helping those in crisis through the development of a national suicide prevention call center here in Missoula, along with the mobile response units that can effectively and empathetically intervene in crisis situations. And whereas our community will support suicide prevention efforts in the maximum extent possible with initiatives like Project Tomorrow, which work to reduce Missoula County suicide deaths, and attempts through educational programs and an evidence-based policy. Now therefore, be it resolved, in coordination with National Suicide Prevention Week, we, the Missoula Board of County Commissioners, do hereby recognize the week of September 6th to 12th, 2020 as Suicide Prevention Week, and invite all citizens to join in recognizing suicide as a community-wide problem and suicide prevention as requiring a community effort.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah.
Thanks, Nancy, for all your work on this super important issue. You've been really successful. Appreciate that.
Really appreciate it.
Okay, do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? And want to leave open that we're ready to hear more public comments on the proposed fiscal year 21 budget for another chunk of time.
Until, yeah, Josh, did you have a date for that? Is it until Friday the
Emmy,
3rd?
thank you. Is that right, Emmy? Is it Friday the 3rd?
Thursday, September 3rd is the public hearing on the final budget, but you guys are not adopting it until September 8th at your administrative public meeting. And so I believe you can take comments all the way up till September 8th.
Great, thank you. So we encourage anybody out there who would like to comment, please do so. Mind you have till September 8th. Okay, the current claims list. Claims received as of August 6th, 2020 to August 19th, 2020 by the Commissioner's Office. Total $5,255,810.24. We have 4 hearings today. The first one is on the Missoula Rural Fire District petition, and Karen Baldridge, Property Records Specialist with the Clerk and Recorder's Office, will present. Karen, take it away.
Oh, Karen, you're on mute. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm unmuted now. Hi. Yes, my name is Karen Baldridge. I'm here from the Clerk and Recorder's Office to present a petition made by a resident of Missoula County to annex their property into the Missoula Rural Fire District. The petition, which was signed by property owners who represent at least 40% of the acreage and 40% of the taxable value, is for 15155 Miller Creek Road in Missoula. The legal description of the property is the east half of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter in Section 7, Township 11 North, Range 18 West. The notice of hearing for the petition was published twice in the Missoulian, and so now the petition is presented for your decision.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this? All right, Juan, do you have any questions?
No. Okay, so there's I'm sorry, I'm just reading through this. No landowners? Anyone commenting? Nope. Okay, I will make the motion to approve the petition to annex property located at the east half of the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 7, Township 11 North, Range 18 West, Missoula County. Aha, here's the address. Parcel number 8667002.
Great. Thanks. All right, all in favor?
Thanks, Karen. Oh, aye.
Thanks, Karen.
Sorry.
All right, Dory, you've got the next 2 of them. This is exciting. This is coming before us now.
It is, and thank you, commissioners. And we have a number of people that are here today. So if we have some detailed questions I can't answer, they will be ready to step in. And I'm going to start with sharing, obviously, a Google Earth map. I'm hoping you can see that. It's really showing the whole Bonner area, but in particular the Bonner Mill site. And where my cursor is where the repository that I'm presenting to you today is located. This is 2.8 acres. And obviously you see the Blackfoot River here, Highway 200, this school. So this is a significant area, really right in the middle or near to residents, near to other public services and the river. I just like this view of it too, to give you a real good idea of how significant this is, not only to the sort of environmental concerns and development of Bonner property development, but you have Kettle House, the amphitheater, and over in the log yard, and how this really impacts sort of transportation throughout this area. So if there's any questions on the map, I could either answer those or I'll go ahead into the agreement that we have for you today.
Go ahead
Go.
is fine for me. Yeah.
Please do.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll go back to my sharing. So I put together, so what's before you today is a development agreement between Missoula County and Bonner Property Development. Bonner Property Development will be the actual, will do the work on this project. So they will be going out to bid, hiring the contractor, and in working with Territorial Landworks, now known as IMEG, the engineer. So I wanted to go through what we have in this development agreement. It really sets forth sort of the county's responsibilities, which is primarily to pay up to $3 million, and the developer's responsibilities. And I know I have DEQ on the line too, so they will step up if there's something that they need to add to this. So this district was created in 2012. The county has done some smaller projects in the area, some cleanup, but we have really been looking at this large project and trying to accrue some funding for this project. This area was the subject of a cleanup action instituted by the Montana Department of Environmental Quality. Bonner Property Development, which I'm referring to as a developer, purchased this from Stimson Lumber. The repository that of PCB that is located, the 2.8 acres, has approximately 40,000 cubic yards of low-level PCB contaminated material, and it's capped with 2 feet of clean material, which is hydroseeded, which you could kind of see on that Google Earth map. Removal of this is not required under DEQ or EPA rules because it is compliant with industrial standards. But for development purposes, environmental, we're looking at, the plan has been to remove this. When this district was developed, a plan is put into place. The removal project and the use of funds needs to be in the plan, which it was. It stated that the repository is a challenge that must be addressed, and it affects development on the property and access to other buildings in the area, not just by Bonner Property Development, but other owners in the area. And I will point out that I contacted the other owners within the Bonner Mill, Tifford, to make them aware of this before the commission, and I received no comments. And I know they've been aware of this project for a number of years. So when the district was developed, there were some comments by neighbors in the community concerned about the repository, and so this will address the concerns of tenants that are on the property, neighbors, Bonner Community Council is aware of this, so it will address those larger goals too. Montana law authorizes tax increment funds to be used by the county to pay costs for environmental remediation, cleaning up property. So it is a proper use of tax increment funds. This project was presented to the Missoula Development Authority, which is advisory to the county commissioners. On October 23rd, 2019, they recommended that the board authorize up to $3 million in tax increment funds for removal of the repository. One of the items before you was the assignment of the contract with Territorial Landworks. We entered into that contract to get the engineering moving on this project, and now that the project will be done by Bonner Property Development, the request is to assign the contract with Territorial to Bonner Property Development. Before we are obligated to spend funds on the actual project, they must obtain approval from DEQ, and I can say that process has been ongoing and made good progress, and I think that will happen fairly soon, but we clearly will have DEQ, EPA, and Stimson approval before this project proceeds. The developer acknowledges that if it's over $3 million, that will be the responsibility of the developer. The proposed general timeline is, they're still working on this, but with the bid package to be available in September, with bids due early October, and the work to be completed by mid-December. I'll point out this contract has had lots of review with the county attorney's office and the risk manager to include, environmental language in there and sufficient insurance. I wanted to point out that Travis Ross, Al Burley, David Wall have been active in not as much this actual agreement, but in putting together the whole project. And the next step, and I've been working with Andrew and Dorsey and Whitney, and then we'll just proceed on the financing aspect of it. This district currently has about 1.3 million in cash in its cash account. So the balance and how finance wants to best finance this project will decide. So we have, like I say, representatives, Bonner Property Development, Territorial Landmarks, DEQ, I'm sure Keith Large is on, and Republic Services are available for questions or comments. Thank you. And then I did put the proposed motions up, so when you get to that, I have them in front of you.
Dory, I just had a question, and this is my own fault for not fully understanding. So you're talking about this going out to bid in October, is that what you said?
September.
September, okay. So what's Territorial's role?
Territorial is the engineer that will be working for Bonner Property Development in putting together the bid package and sort of overseeing the project. So they will go out to, yeah, okay. Right, but yeah. They're
not the ones who's doing the work. They're going to so when bids come in, they're going to look at it and then they're make sure that the work is done well.
Right.
Exactly.
And they have been working very closely with DEQ and plus Eric Smart, who's an environmental consultant, is working for Territorial. So they have been all working very closely. They put together what they call a work plan because there's quite a bit of criteria that has to go into it, like how trucks are washed, what time of day you work, what access, all of those environmental terms. And so Territorial and Eric Smart and DEQ have been working very closely together, and representatives of Bonner Property Development.
After this work is done, will there be any environmental restrictions on what can take place on this property due to any residue left there? I mean, I guess, how clean does it have to get to be able to be developed to be consistent with the other type of activity that's happening at the development park?
It's my understanding there will not need to be any further cleanup or restrictions put on it.
So anything could happen there in terms of business development that's consistent with the development park.
That's my understanding. Of course, they'll have, building code, things like compaction and make sure it's, sure. Yeah. But correct. I don't think there's any environmental restrictions.
And if Keith is on the line, could you describe kind of the nature of the cleanup? What's going to happen?
Yeah, this is Keith Large with DEQ. The idea was, it started because when we first started doing the cleanup along the river, it turned out that they kept having problems with their confirmation sampling as they moved to the west. And so they kept digging, and they ended up with about 40,000 cubic yards more than what was originally anticipated. So that waste was stockpiled on site. It was found to be real low level because it wasn't the waste that came right out of the old cooling pond that had the high concentrations. It was slightly to the south, and probably the oil had leaked over that way somehow and contaminated with PCBs. And you got to remember that PCBs are regulated under TSCA, so that's how come the EPA is so involved, because of TSCA regulations. And then in 2011, it was proposed by Stimson to figure out how to build a repository. The mill was pretty much shut down at that time. There hadn't been a lot of redevelopment started on the site yet. And so they found out that if they could build an on-site repository, it would save them about $700,000 in haul costs to take it to the landfill. So they put together a plan and stuff, and then the director of DEQ, we had a modified AOC, and he signed off on it, and it all got built in 2012, and all this was happening about the same time that Bonner Property Development was buying all the property from Stimson Lumber, and the project was finished in 2012. So it is an engineered repository. It gets monitored twice a year. We inspect it annually to see if the cap, the 2-foot thick clean material cap, the top 6 inches is topsoil, so it grows grass real well, and it will shed the water. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a good repository and everything, but like Dory mentioned, you can see how much development has happened at the Bonner Mill. And that 3 acres is in a prime location. Nobody was against locating it there in 2011 and 2012, but now there's so much. There's over, my understanding, there's over 400 people that work on site again. And so it looks like it'd be a good opportunity to move all of that to the landfill, and we could get it all moved to the landfill. They'll clean it up to industrial level cleanups of 0.74 parts per million, because that property out there is zoned industrial. It wouldn't get cleaned up to residential. So it's pretty straightforward project. It's pretty easy. They have the opportunity to scrape off 18 inches of the cap and save that clean material for some other use, probably on site or around the Bonner area. And then they would start digging into the final 6 inches in the waste. They would haul that all to the landfill. They'll get to the bottom. It turns out it has an unusual barrier on the bottom. Part of it's concrete and part of it's asphalt. So they'll probably dig up all the asphalt. It's the location where the old dry kilns used to be to dry the wood as it would come out of the sawmill before it would go to the planer building and get planed down and cut into product size and shipped out. So they do all that. They'll have to, once the excavation's done, there's a whole, because of TSCA rules, once again have to go back and do confirmation sampling and prove that it's okay and it's clean, that everything's below 0.74, and then they'll be given permission to backfill. And the backfill's kind of up to them, because I'm not sure if they're going to start building buildings, because part of the waste is about 8 feet deep because of the old kiln building basement that was in part of the area. But they'll get rid of all that, and they'll test it, make sure they get approval. They'll have to prove to EPA and DEQ that they passed the test. This is a DEQ lead site, but we still have to work with EPA because of TSCA's involved rules and stuff. So then they can move on from there. And then there's one thing I might clarify that Dory mentioned earlier. They had, I think it was item number 9 on her previous slides or something. So they have permission from DEQ to move forward with doing all the design documents. They have the design documents in draft final, and there is a couple of small changes that Matt with Territorial wants to make, but we'll have those done pretty soon. And then they'll get another approval from DEQ when they're ready if they want to put it out to bid. They don't really need our approval. They should probably ask us if we concur, because it's strictly between the county funding and Bonner Property Development putting out the bid. But what they do need is, after the bid is won, they have a contractor, they get all the appropriate paperwork like construction bond and insurance, and they can provide copies to DEQ. The very last approval letter and notice to proceed, they'll need a signed letter from DEQ. that'll probably happen within a week before they start construction. And so, yeah, we've been working on this. It started last summer with a bunch of phone calls. Dory organized the first meeting last October, and we've just been having meetings on and off trying to get through the design and all that paperwork and get this ready and stuff. And now she's ready with her TIF paperwork for you guys to decide if you're going to approve it today, I guess. I think she wants you to approve it today. Isn't that right, Dory?
That is my recommendation.
Thanks, Keith.
You bet.
Well, are there folks from Bonner Property Development or Republic that wanted to speak on this too?
Commissioner Vero, Commissioner Schlotnick, this is Chad Bauer from Republic Services. How are you guys doing?
Good, hey Chad, it's
Great.
good to hear your voice.
Good to hear.
Yes, we are totally supportive of this project to get that area cleaned back up, and we have the capacity and the ability to handle this waste coming in, and everything's been approved through our approval processes. So we're ready to move forward as soon as the county and Bonner Properties ready to move forward with this project.
Fantastic. Thanks. Now this is a long time in coming, and well, we're really excited that we're at this spot, and that it won't be long, and that couple acres can be developed industrially and be a functioning part of the development park.
I got dropped, but I think basically what I heard was Republic is willing and able and to deal with this, correct?
That is correct, and
Okay.
all of the approvals on our side are done, so everything that they have out there is acceptable at the landfill.
Great. And yes, I concur with Josh. We're excited I'm excited to get this done. It's been
Yeah.
a long time coming.
Yeah, and given the way the great success that's been had out at the development park, I think we're confident that we'll see new businesses hiring new people and filling this couple acres in the next couple of years.
So I guess, sorry, did someone want to speak from Bonner?
This is Steve Nelson. I was having trouble figuring out my mute, but anyway, I got that figured out. But yes, we're very excited, and I think the community of Bonner and this whole area out here is excited about it. I know back when we initially purchased the property, there were several. I mean, we objected to it being put on the site. I know that they approved it and they allowed it, but we wrote a letter, and I remember the county commissioners at the time felt the same way, and I think the community. So we appreciate the support, and we will continue to move forward and try to do really good things for Missoula and the Bonner community.
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Okay, do we have a motion?
Yeah, or I can't. I'm afraid to touch things on my phone here. Like I might drop myself. So, is there anyone else that can comment on this? And I also can't see. But okay, I'm gonna move to approve the development agreement with Bonner Property Development LLC.
Great. All in favor?
Aye. And then Dory, sorry, go ahead. Should we finish voting on that, or do you want to vote with all these? I'm sorry, Dory, I can't read your screen.
Oh, that's okay. So the only other, I guess, on the motion that you just made, I'd ask that you add to it that the project's an eligible use of tax increment funds under the acts.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes. For payment up to $3 million in tax increment funds for removal of the repository at the Bonner Milltown Tax Increment Financing District, Industrial District.
Thank you. And then the other is, sorry, go ahead, Josh, the assignment of the contract.
To
With Eric.
IMDG.
Yes, so I'm going to also motion, can I do these together or do they each need to be separate B and C?
I would recommend they be separate.
Okay, thanks. I also move to approve the assignment of territorial landworks, now known as IMEG Professional Services Agreement dated July 17th, 2019 to Bonner Property Development LLC.
Okay, let's vote on the first motion on the development agreement with Bonner Property.
Goodness. Sorry, Josh.
Well, so that's all right. So all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. And then we'll vote on the second one, the assignment of IMEG Corp Professional PSA to Bonner Property Development LLC. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There we go. Well, thank you so much for all your hard work, years of hard work, Dory, and your work, Steve, and patience to get us to this point. And Keith helped a lot. A whole bunch of people were involved in this. And we look forward to more great things out at the development park.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure, Josh. Do we need to like read out?
I think we're good.
We're good. Thank you. Yes, let's get this done.
You're good.
Very good. All right, thanks a lot. So the next one up is Tim Worley to talk with us about Lions Lane subdivision covenant amendment.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners.
Hey, Tim.
Looks like Tim was dropped, but I'm going to assume that he'll come back in here.
Sorry, commissioners, I'm back. All right, Lyles Lane subdivision. I will share my screen here. Okay, this is a request for a covenant amendment, and it would amount to changes in fire protection water supply for a single lot within Lyles Lane subdivision. And I should point out that this is a request by Aaron Taylor Shaw, who is being represented by Paul Bishop Design and DVG Architecture, as well as WGM Group. The subdivision in question is Lyles Lane subdivision, which is northeast of the Frenchtown interchange on Gerard Lane. And the lot in question is Lot 2, which is about 5 acres within the 3-lot subdivision. And the proposal is for a veterinary clinic on the property. This is a plan view showing the clinic itself, as well as a future potential riding arena. Zooming in a little bit, this shows a graphic of the 2 main buildings, including the veterinary clinic here. And this clinic will be tied to an apartment building as well as a barn, and this is the riding arena here. This graphic shows emergency vehicle access to the location. And this is how the water is going to get stored for the fire protection water supply. It's in a series of cisterns, and this is a side view of what one of the cisterns likely will look like. There is a dry hydrant that Frenchtown Fire can connect to above ground. Most of this will be below ground. And this is an overhead view of a series of 5 of these cisterns, essentially linked together or manifold, so that water can be pulled through the series of cisterns if need be. This is a graphic showing the clinic on the right-hand side of the slide, as well as the barn, which I understand is going to be a large animal surgery area. And then phase 2 of this project off in the future will be potentially a riding arena on the southern end of the complex. So it's been calculated that roughly 15,000 gallons of water storage will be needed to fight a fire if one happens involving the clinic, the apartment, and the barn. An additional 12,000 or so gallons would be needed for the riding arena to the south. So the requirement for sprinklers applies to all the lots in the subdivision, and thus the request. This applicant would like to modify it to do the cistern option with a fire department connection. This would only apply to lot 2. The other lots would still have to provide fire protection via sprinklers. And so as part of that submittal, there was a request to amend this paragraph within the existing filed covenants. And staff's recommendation is essentially to lengthen this a little bit to be a little clearer about what's required for fire protection. So our recommendation, again, speaks to lot 2 only. The rest of the lots within the subdivision have to do sprinklers for fire protection. The covenant language would require a review of storage, volume, fire flows, etc., prior to building inspection. So prior to final inspection, the fire protection system has to be reviewed as well by our county fire inspector. Everything must be substantially as depicted in the submittal. And then the water supply would be re-evaluated prior to final inspection of the arena, which again is the second phase of this project. Any building deviations would require review and modification of the system. For instance, if they were to build another dwelling or something like that, it would require a subsequent review of the fire protection system to make sure it's robust enough. Access to the dry hydrant and setback from buildings would be subject to review. And there would also be a plan for periodic maintenance that would be recorded with the updated covenants. So the applicant has clarified to us that there wouldn't be a need for a subsequent review of the fire protection system when the arena is built, because their plan is for installation of the whole system at once, which we think is a very positive step forward. So they are recommending striking, I think it's section B of staff's recommended language, which again speaks to a subsequent review of the fire protection system once the arena gets built. No subsequent review is going to be required in this case because the whole system is going to be put in the ground, installed, etc., before final inspection of the veterinary clinic and the buildings tied to that clinic. So to amend covenants, there's certain criteria that you have to go through. The change has to be minor in nature. It has to comply with the subdivision regulations. Regulatory protections and safeguards have to be left intact with the change. There can't be any impacts that result from the change. The change has to be consistent with the growth policy as well as the original subdivision findings of fact. The change can't be incremental, which is a change that triggers a series of others. It has to acknowledge that something has changed with the application. In this case, that change being the vet clinic, which wasn't necessarily anticipated with the subdivision. And it can't be based on economics. So what we concluded is that a cistern system is equivalent fire protection to sprinklers. The proposal complies with fire code and the subdivision regulations. All regulatory safeguards have been upheld. There could be no new impacts, or there were no impacts from the fire protection change, I should say. We found that this change is consistent with the growth policy as well as the findings of fact regarding fire protection. This change is not an incremental change since it focuses merely on lot 2. The other 2 lots have to do sprinklers still. It is based on the change condition of a vet clinic being built on the site, which was not anticipated with the original subdivision application. And it's not based on economics. So staff's recommendation is for approval. And there's your motion. I move to approve amendments to Lyles Lane subdivision covenants as detailed in the staff report and as amended at the public hearing.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Do we have a developer or a developer's representative or owner would like to speak on this?
Hi all, this is Abby Enderlin from WGM Group, developers representative.
Great, thanks.
Hey, Abby.
Hi, just wanted to input that we've been in close conversation with Frenchtown Rural Fire and calculated the water storage requirements based on an NFPA, and we've actually developed and designed similar cistern systems for nearby developments as well. So we're very aware of all the requirements that Frenchtown needs in order to connect to this system with their hydrant. So.
Great, thanks.
And Tim, I think you said this, but so that additional 12,000 gallon, or the water that's needed for the riding arena, that is going to be in place. The whole project will be completed, and so there's no timeline, like the riding arena can go in 10 years from now. It won't matter.
That's correct. Basically, the water supply volume that will be installed from the get-go is going to be sufficient to take care of the arena in addition to the vet clinic and the other buildings.
Great.
I'm sorry, Josh. Maybe did I cut someone off?
No. Does I'm good in terms of questions. Juan, do you have any more?
Nope. I moved to approve the. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to see, make sure everybody who spoke who wants to speak on this has. We don't want to cut anybody off.
Okay, I don't see anyone, so I'm going to move to approve the amendments to the Lyles Lane subdivision covenants as detailed in the staff report.
Excellent. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Tim, thanks for all your good work on this. It's very clear and well done.
It was a very good project on the development end. This is one of the models that I point to now. Just a lot of good work by WGM and DVG Architecture and Paul Bishop Design.
Great. Well, thanks all of you for your integrity on this.
And congratulations, Dr. Taylor. Thanks for sticking with it.
Yeah. Look forward to hearing about the riding arena. All right. Unless we have any other business, we're done.
Commissioners,
Yes.
Nate Kalkofen here. Hey, real quick, I apologize. My 1 o'clock ran over. I wasn't able to join soon enough for public comments on agenda number 5 for the fiscal year 21 budget. Would you entertain a revisit to agenda item 5?
You're welcome to make any comment you'd like.
Be careful. So, say, listen, I really appreciate the consideration. But for the record, my name is Nate Kalkofen, Lolo community member and member of the Lolo Community Council. Today I come speaking to you as a Lolo resident who has talked to many neighbors and many members of the community down here. But on the budget that you're proposing, I mean, quite frankly, it's fairly tone deaf. Specifically, they ask for a 2% property tax increase, and really narrowing it down to, the fact that, your concern for the environment is commendable. We all want clean air and water. But the fact that you commissioners adopted the Climate Ready Missoula Plan in May, knowing you didn't have the funding to make it a reality and are now looking to raise taxes to pay for it, is really quite irresponsible. Whether you believe in global warming or not, that's great if you do. One thing to keep in mind, not one single climate prediction in over 50 years, commissioners, has ever come true. And the reason I mention this is you're looking to push something on the community or to raise taxes in an area that's really not going to affect one single resident. Our county is growing. As we all know, we're bigger than Maryland, and we're growing exponentially. I mean, we all know that folks moving in from California and Texas. It's crazy. You can't buy a mattress in this town right now. From a guy trying right now. But the thing is that, and that's great that we have this growth. In fact, we have a 250 home development coming in here into Lolo, which is fantastic. But really the issue that I think was grossly missed in your budget is the sheriff's department. When we have a county the size of Maryland, bigger than Maryland, state of Maryland, and we have maybe 3, maybe 4 deputies on patrol at any given time, it's really unacceptable. In fact, I've sat down with the sheriff's office, and we're looking to consider a special tax district down here just to pay for a sheriff's deputy to patrol south of Missoula. We need more sheriff's deputy. Crime is rising. We have a major crime problem here in Lolo, major drug problem. We need more law enforcement officers. And so, again, I know you have worked very, very hard on this budget. It's not easy to pull together. But I would ask that, respectfully ask that you take a budget back to the drawing board, work towards living within our means, and reconsider really what county residents need to help them live a safer, more enjoyable life. And that's really much more law enforcement. So, again, appreciate your public service, and again, I appreciate the consideration to allow me to revisit agenda number 5. So, thank you.
Thanks for your.
Nate.
I just want to point out a couple things. That the sheriff presents us with his budget, and we approved the sheriff's budget without any changes. So if you would like the sheriff to spend more money on law enforcement, I would suggest reaching out directly to TJ and letting him know that, as we approved the sheriff's budget this year as he presented it to us. We have a lot of faith in our sheriff and didn't change what he came to us with. So if you have strong feelings about it, please take it up with the sheriff, and we will chat with him about it as well. And the other thing I just wanted to point out on the 2% increase, an individual's property taxes is not going to increase 2%. We were talking about total revenue. That total revenue encompasses a whole lot more than property taxes. In fact, to be really specific, property taxes on a $350,000 house will go up in the $1.40 a month range, which is less than a cup of coffee per month. And not a whole lot of that reflects new things. A whole bunch of that reflects the cost of doing business of all kinds. That means keeping 850 people employed and buying the materials to keep the roads running. Costs an additional $1.50 a month per $350,000 house. As you know from being in business, costs this year cost more than last year. So there's a whole lot of rising costs in general that are reflected in there as well. And I really appreciate that people like you are paying attention, and I wish we got more comment. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments?
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to jump back to this litigation mediation that's going on behind me.
Okay. Thanks
all.
everyone.
That we're done.